Welcome, everybody. Before we start today, I just wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge and respect the traditional owners and custodians of the various lands that we're working on today. Thank you for joining the webinar, the CFO's Simple Path to AI. It's great to see so many familiar faces and also to see quite a few people for the first time in Australia and internationally. For those that I'm not yet connected with, my name's Antony Hillyer and I'm the founder of 360. I've been in recruitment now for 19 years, since August 2013 within senior and executive finance in Australia. 2 years ago, I created 360 with the ongoing commitment to create value to finance leaders like you outside of recruitment. And why this webinar exists? For the past 12, 18 months, there's been an increasingly common discussion point around AI. Today, the same conversations are happening and businesses are either being apprehensive or overwhelmed by AI and things just haven't moved on. So whilst many CFOs and finance leaders like you are on board with the idea, the same question keeps popping up: where do I start? What I put this down to is AI is evolving faster than people are adapting. So I wanted to support finance leaders like you with practical, real-life knowledge, and I saw the opportunity to connect people like you with a common topic. So I wanted to make this easy. I wanted to make it convenient and accessible. So I picked up the phone to Andre. I've known Andre now for about 12 years as a client, a hiring manager, and as a candidate. And over this time, I've known Andre to be ahead of his peers with digitalization, tech innovation and enhancement, and making complex things really simple. But importantly, he's already been practicing AI. In a recent catch up with Andre, the topic of AI obviously came up. The difference in this conversation was remarkable. A different experience with AI altogether, and someone that has evolved with AI. So what this is new to some people, Andre's already been doing this for 5 or 6 years, so it made sense. For me, it was a no-brainer to ask Andre if he was willing and kind enough to share his experience with you guys on a fellow peer group to support you in your journey, whether you're just starting out, whether it's worked before or failed, or just to give you that knowledge to bridge those gaps. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Andre, and I hope you find this valuable. Andre, over to you.
Thanks, Ant. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. It's a little bit apprehensive to talk to such a good group, but I do like sharing because I think we all learn from each other, and it's the best way forward. So before I jump in, I think for those who don't know me, let me kind of give you a quick overview. I've had a 30-year career, still going. 16 of those have been in C-level roles where I've been a CFO, divisional CFO, but I've also been in COO and head of sales roles. So I've kind of experienced a broader, I guess, function experience across the wider business than just finance. I guess I built my career based on driving business transformations and helping businesses grow, helping them fix their bottom line, grow the top line. And I've been lucky enough to work in large blue chip companies like Optus and Globant and Telstra, but I've also been able to take that skill set I've got and go into smaller scale up organizations like Asurion and eWave. So across lots of different industries, obviously technology, but insurance, logistics, telco, energy, and environmental services. So common feature across all of that was driving transformation, and as a person that really enjoys technology and is always looking at how it can help you, it's not unusual to see that a lot of those transformations have come about with a technology bent to them. And so during that 16-odd year career, 30-year career, I've been involved in ERPs, shared service setups, CRM, e-commerce, business intelligence. And over the last 5 years, I've also gotten involved in a number of AI projects and led them. So what I was thinking is, how am I going to share what I've learned over this time? And I thought what I might do today is start with maybe what's not the obvious, but why should finance be involved in AI strategy? Talk you through how I got started and some use cases or examples of cases where I led an AI project, so you can get a feel for it in real life. During that time, I've built a sort of framework I use, a 30, 60 day to get started. And I'm going to take you through that and share how I do things so that you can potentially use it. And then I wanted to step back and go, okay, what exists today in AI in finance? How can, if you're starting out today, where could you go and look for some tools? And then probably the last thing to help you with is really my learnings of how to use AI effectively and efficiently. So some AI prompt work there and the frameworks I like to use to get the most out of it. So why should finance drive the AI strategy? And I think I'm going to start with this with, let's talk about some of the myths and challenges that exist there. I've heard them all and seen it. But I wanted to say, well, how can finance actually help overcome some of these challenges and myths? And there's a lot out there in the market, and if you go and Google, you'll see them. But what I kind of go is there's probably three that I commonly hear. AI is only for tech companies, that AI will replace humans, and that you need perfect data. And I wanted to just touch on those three things for a sec, because I think this is where we need to be leaders to help organizations move past some of these, I won't say fear mongering, but anxiety elements of AI. So is AI just for tech? My view of AI is it is a highly complex tech solution, but like all solutions, it's built to address business problems. So I think the key thing when I'm looking for it as a finance leader, and what I found is if I went and looked into the business, I found business problems, and then I could find an AI solution to help that specific problem. So it's not just for tech; it goes across the whole organization. The other kind of key points around that is if you think about it, one of the great things finance do is we generally see business problems very quickly. We're quite adept as a profession at seeing things that sometimes operators don't see. And so us as drivers of AI, we can see those business problems where we can maybe see a great example of something where AI can be deployed to help solve it. And then our skills, as finance people around building business cases about how to commercialize and understand whether it's a good investment starts to come to the fore. And we can help businesses and our business understand where we can deploy AI to make a difference. The second one was around the human. Will it replace humans? And unfortunately, we are seeing the media pick up those cases where it's done. But if you actually look at where AI has been adopted, it's not in the main being adopted to replace humans. That's the media grab. Where we're seeing it being deployed is to reinforce and augment the humans side of things. So what might be a processual thing, or might be something that we don't have, it takes a lot of time to do, or where we need multiple points of view, we can see that the AI engine is getting involved to help solve that problem and enhance the capability of the person that's doing it. So it's not really about replacing them, it's about augmenting and supporting them and making them a much more capable member of your team. And then the last one around perfect data, it's also a learning that I took through this, which I'll share later, is that you need perfect data to do AI. And I think when AI first landed, maybe that was true. But what I've seen over the last 6 to 8 months in particular is AI has gotten so smart and is getting smarter by the day that it can actually help you recognize what's poor quality data and fix it now. So it's not an excuse not to start. It actually is, well, maybe the AI can help you with your data as much as do the problem solving that you want to do. So they're the sort of, wanted to start with those. The next bit I wanted to talk about is why you should get involved and why finance makes sense is a little bit around that data, and that's around your ERP. Most organizations today have some sort of ERP. What we see in the ERP is a relatively structured set of data that is reasonably clean because it needs to be in finance, that covers quite a wide range of the organization. And if we sort of think about that and then think about, well, what does an AI agent need to be successful? It is data and data that covers a wide range of things and is relatively clean. So it makes kind of sense for you to start thinking about your AI strategy to be an extension of what your ERP is. And that, I kind of look at it and go, when we think about how ERPs have evolved and we've moved from an on-prem type of arrangement, and I know some businesses may still have that, but there's been a large movement over the last 10, 15 years to cloud-based ERP. We've all made that jump to an environment where it's actually tailor-made for an AI environment. Cloud-based ERPs are by nature API ready. They quite often have a data lake capability built around it to enable it. And that allows you to very readily plug an AI agent into what you're doing much easier. And of course, being in the cloud, it's infinitely scalable. You can adjust the compute power that's there so you don't bog it down. And you can start getting some real-time processing happening out at the back end. So I kind of go, is the ERP the spot to start for your AI strategy? It's certain for finance, my view is it's a great place to start. And it's where I started, and it's the example I'm going to share with you. The last piece on why I think it makes sense for finance to start the AI piece of work is really around 5 common CFO pain points. As a CFO, we've all had these at different stages in our career. Working capital management is an omnipresent challenge in any organization, particularly in scale-up organizations where you're really trying to maximize and minimize the reservation of cash for working capital to free it up for investment. Scenario planning, we saw that through COVID, how important it was not just to have a forecast, but to have multiple different scenarios run for a forecast model. Compliance management is becoming greater and greater, the regulatory side of our roles. The data integration and availability, moving from batch and waiting, we've got to wait overnight for something to be available to it's real-time available. And then lastly, the core of what finance is about, having integrity in our books. How can we ensure that our reconciliations, the things that our auditors look at, religiously to ensure we're accounting correctly, is being done accurately. And so I kind of picked those 5 things because what I wanted to flag to you is this AI exists in each of these areas today. And if I'm looking at where can AI help finance, these are the 5 areas I'm going, these are problem areas that surely your organization has one of these happening at the moment, and it makes sense for you to start thinking about AI to help solve that specific issue. And I've given you some examples on the right of AI tools that exist across each. It's by no means the most extensive list, but they're just things that I know work for that specific thing. And in some cases, I've used those myself to implement. So let me wrap up why I think you must champion AI. And there's 4 key reasons. The first one is around risk and ethical management. We know that AI has is immensely capable, but it comes with a risk. And then the great thing about finance owning risk is that we're also in a position to then have a significant say on how the AI strategy should evolve. And, you know, as a CFO, I would want to insist on that. I want to ensure that the organization's risk profile is matched to the AI strategy, that we're not introducing something that's going to cause damage to the organization down the track. The second reason around the strategy, you know, the CFO role has changed over the last 10, 15 years, and we're much more strategic. And in some cases, we very much are the heart of the strategy for the organization in helping frame it, helping implement it, and helping ensure that we're on track, both from a monitoring point of view, but also from actually getting involved to make it happen. So it makes sense that the single biggest change in an organization, probably since the 80s when personal computers came about, is going to be driven by the CFO that's probably heavily involved in the strategy anyway. The last piece, so the third piece was around data integrity and accuracy. And I put this in because, you know, some organizations are better than others, but we know that AI works best when it has accurate data, it has integrity around the data that's put into the model, and that leads to better outcomes that the AI engine can generate. The interesting thing about finance is we actually understand the mechanics of structured, unstructured data much better than a lot of other functions. So my view is if you look at finance teams, they probably own 75, 80% of the data in an organization anyway, because of the BI tools and things that you've built. It makes sense for us to say, well, we own the data. Let's own the AI strategy that's going to use it so that we're ensuring the data that goes in is accurate. And then the last piece is the obvious return on investment. We all got that mandate. AI is just another investment. It's there that we should be expecting a return, and we should be heavily involved in ensuring that happens. So those are the reasons I think we should be owning AI, and were the reasons I started getting involved in AI. So let me jump into now how I started, because I think you'll find I've got two case studies I'm going to take you through, and I think they kind of demonstrate that, you know, AI, if you start small, allows you to learn along the way, and certainly that's what I've done. You know, our first play with AI was a success, but it also taught us more than some things that we got wrong that we needed to modify the next time we went. So I thought two case studies would be a great way to get how I started in AI across. The first case study wasn't in finance. The first time I did an AI project, I was in an e-commerce consulting and technology company. I was both CFO and COO, and you know, when the noise of AI hit, we were talking. I was talking with my leadership team, and my way of working with my leadership team is I quite often propose questions to them and then just leave them to go and have a think about how we could solve those questions. And one of the things that came up is, we kept hearing from our clients that doing enterprise level commerce is an expensive exercise. It takes a long time. The average, depending on how big the entity is and how many SKUs and things you got, was taking anywhere from 12 to 24 months to get an initial project up and running. That it costs too much, because obviously extended projects cost more. And they were really challenging us to find ways to reduce the cost of the deployment, the time it takes, and like any e-commerce thing which generates revenue, they're very sensitive to bugs that exist there. So I kind of proposed to my team a question that said, how can we use AI to help us start to address some of these customer concerns? And to their credit, they went away and did a lot of thinking, and they came back to me and the proposal to me to use AI to help us leverage the library of code add-ins, extensions that we have built that we used every day, but make it more efficient in the way we used it, and to harden that code so that we could deploy it consistently into clients, therefore reducing the time it takes to develop something, improving the quality, and ultimately reducing costs because we're spending less time. So this sounded interesting. I kind of liked the idea. I therefore found some money that we had lying around. Like any good CFO, there's always a little bit of cash that we keep in our back pocket for pilot things. And so I funded a project, a small pilot, if you like, to go away and see how we could use AI to automate the use of this library of code that we have to improve the client experience. And we did that by forming a tiger team, and we had a small team. It was about 5 people across different areas of the business. We acquired a large language model, which at the time was what we all thought AI was. So it was an open source model we could modify. We acquired that, hosted it in our cloud environment, and then they went about teaching the business on how to use teaching the AI agent how to use the library. So we loaded the library into the AI agent, and then we started teaching the AI agent what bits of that code could go together, what each component of the library is. So it's like you think about a traditional database searching type arrangement, how the AI could use that to stitch together the different library components we had to present ready-made code back to the developer. And what we were able to do with that is take that library of code, which was quite extensive, but actually start to make it readily accessible to any of the developers in our organization. And then that also had the ability for us to spend time, our heads of practice, the senior software people who probably aren't deployed most of the time, but oversee everything. They could spend the time to get that code really hardened, really good. So when it was deployed out of the library, we knew that we were deploying quality code. And what we then did was effectively created a scenario where a junior developer, a mid developer, could use the AI tool to tell what they were building. That AI tool would then go to the library, pull out the relevant pieces of code from the library, stitch it together, and present back into the software development environment a pre-built piece of software ready to go. And the outcome of all that was we were able to save about 3 months in our development time. So we reduced that 12 months to roughly 9 months project. We were able to improve the quality of the code because we were using hardened code that we knew worked. But it also presented an additional challenge to us. And that was, it changed our business model. We realized that by doing this, we were actually cutting the hand off of what made us money. We made money by selling people at hourly rates, and all of a sudden we were reducing that. So we had to start thinking about different commercial structure. And anyone that understands how business valuations work in technology, a recurring revenue stream is much better than a one-off revenue stream. So we were able to introduce to our business a licensing model for that code to help offset the cost of help offset the loss of revenue from the hourly rate, but at the same time start to create a recurring revenue stream. And so the element of that is we walked away after doing that project with about an 80% pass rate on the AI engine producing code that was ready to just drop into the solution. We decreased our warranty costs by around 20%, which wasn't our intention up front, but it came about. And then we were better able to use our working capital because the commercial model change allowed me to start charging upfront a license fee instead of waiting to, a month, 6 weeks after a team member had done a piece of work. So that's where we started, and it was a great model, and we learned quite a lot about how to do it. The second sort of experience I thought I'd share with you is how I did the finance AI project. And where we started with this is again, to solve a business problem, not to do AI for AI's sake, but we wanted to solve a particular problem we had. Now, I was in a smaller organization. It was about 30 million business. We had not a large volume, but we had a big enough volume of invoices coming through our business. Our challenge was our invoices, we were a global business. We had about 10 different entities. And of course, we were getting invoices from each of those 10 into our shared service function that we had centralized. And each of those different entities, some of them were English speaking, some were different languages. We had different currencies. And different markets have different requirements around what's a valid invoice, what's an invalid invoice, and we needed to be acutely aware of that in a centralized team. But it was based in the Philippines, probably didn't have a great knowledge of what was happening in each different country. So we were sort of looking at how can we solve our rates of error that we're getting, right, where we incorrectly process something or we process something and we didn't have all the documentation we needed to make it a valid thing, but we paid it anyway. And so I was looking for how to reduce that error rate. Where we started was about 12, 18 months before I started trying to address this problem. We'd implemented a new cloud-based ERP, Sage Intacct. And it was actually through discussing the challenge with the Sage team that they shared that they had built a whole heap of AI into their system, and that they felt that could help us with what we were trying to do. So again, I set up a pilot program. I created a Tiger team, grabbed a Sage consultant, and we started a very short project to see whether we could build using the Sage AI inbuilt agent inside the platform to review the work we were doing in AP and to help get that correct and reduce the error rate. The thing we focused on was what do we want it to do? And it was very much about ensuring that we were processing an invoice for vendors that we knew, that we could identify what requirements was for where the local entity. So based on where the local entity was trading, we could identify what the legislative requirements for the invoicing was, and that we can do all the freeway match to check that the invoice is ready for payment. And it was a relatively quick process because we already were digitizing all the invoices, whether they came initially to us as a digital invoice or whether they were scanned and created as a digital invoice. We already had digital invoice. So it was a relatively straightforward way of us just feeding those invoices through the AI agent for it to read. So what we were able to do then is through this team, we identified one AP officer, and I had the AP officers, by country / vendor. So we took that AP's officers territory, if you like, and we trained the AI agent in the invoices for that one particular AP person. And we did that, and within 4 weeks, we kind of had that up and running and processing that AP officer's invoice. Within about 8 weeks, we were able to expand that to the other AP people and start training the agent in how to deal with the invoices from different vendors that they had responsibility for. The AI agent, what it was doing was what we wanted the AP officer to do. It was getting an invoice, scanning it, determining whether all the information was there from a freeway match point of view. It was then determining what country it related to and whether the documentation existed that we needed to be compliant for that country. It was then, based off that, deciding whether to create a draft AP invoice or whether to actually push it right through to ready for payment. The outcome of all that is we were able to, as we rolled this out, we were able to reduce our processing time of preparing an invoice by 70% because it was automated. But what we wanted to do was reduce errors. So the productivity side was great, but we actually wanted to reduce errors. And that was a 20% gain that we got. So we reduced the errors by 20%. That productivity gain that I got allowed me then, as we were moving towards an IFRS ready organization for an IPO event, to divert the assistant accountants to become a little bit, divert those AP officers to become a little bit more like assistant accountants and start to support the financial accounting team with GL integrity and closing. So that's how we started our AI and finance, starting with AP. The productivity came from the automation, but we were trying to solve a business problem around accuracy. And we were able to achieve that using the inbuilt AI that existed in Sage. So what did I learn through these things? Just things I thought to share with you. Firstly, I started the risk conversation with the board and the CEO early. I was acutely aware of the risk of AI. I was acutely aware of the commentary in the market around AI, and the best place to start was to have an open conversation with the CEO and the board around, hey, we want to do this. We know we need to do this. How do we manage this risk? And that's where I started. And we agreed some principles up front, which we would use, and to this day we do, around what we would allow and wouldn't allow to go through that AI agent. So we weren't pushing everything through. We were very clear on what could go through and what couldn't. The second thing we got right is we did audit the data. So we made sure the data that we were pushing into the AI agents was accurate, that it had integrity, and that we knew the source of it. We had one of the principles we had is that no data could be fed into the AI model until it had been cleared by either the FC or myself. And then that was, it ticked the boxes as to what it was. We also had a transparent culture where we talked about AI as a tool to assist, not a tool to replace. And so we got our culture ready for AI. So we didn't run into a lot of change resistance behavior because people were scared it was going to replace their jobs, because we were very clear it wasn't. We said, no, we're not doing this. If we can free up your time, we'll find uses of your time elsewhere, which are more value add. So we're clear and transparent. As a person, I'm a big fan of the Prosky change management framework, and we use that framework to help educate the organization around AI and how it works with our strategy and why it matters. The next piece we got right, I think, is we didn't try to build a massive AI solution. We just focused on a small, localized problem where we could deploy a small AI solution to fix that individual problem. So getting some easy wins on the road made it easier for us to then get the team more comfortable with AI, to get the organization more comfortable, and for us to assess how to do it properly. And we took those learnings from each one and then modified how we did the next one. That momentum of getting smaller wins also got the team on side, because everybody I've ever worked with loves being in a winning team. They want to make a difference, and if you've got small wins happening more often, it just helps get the right culture around it. And it was I sort of observe it's very interesting from the first time I put the question out there to 2-3 years down the track, the amount of people who would come up and ask me, I want to go and do this small thing with AI. And we moved it away from formally doing pilot programs to, well, we know how to do it. As long as you're doing it, it became just like any other small project that you would run in a business. So what are the things we got wrong, or the things we learnt the hard way? Firstly, we did spend a lot of time to teach the AI agent how to do something. What we didn't do was spend enough time teaching the agent how to handle the exceptions. So the thing to remember is AI is like us as humans. It thinks, right? It can handle something that's not quite right, but you've got to teach it how to handle it. And we didn't do that. And so that was a learning that we had in the first couple that we had, that more time needed to be spent, not just teaching the AI agent and how to handle something that's right, but how to handle something that's wrong so that you can do it either way. We also learned that, and this is particularly relevant nowadays because there's much more AI agents out there, that using a large language model like Copilot, like Claude, to do small tasks is a very expensive way of doing AI. You can do AI much cheaper than using those big LLMs to do small specific tasks. We also found that using a large language model, they aren't necessarily, because they're trained in so much, that to do a small solution was a bit of overkill. You didn't need the AI agent to know absolutely everything that it does as a large language model. You can just go and find something that knows a small, very bespoke piece. The other thing we learned using the large language model, we were using the same model to do multiple things. And over time, we saw as the volume went through that model, that even though that was in the cloud and the cloud allows you to scale, that actually costs money, right? So the compute time was scaling, and at times, to control costs, we would put a limit on it. But then that started creating latency in the way the large language model worked. So our sort of learning was smaller models, more of them, less latency happens and less cost. Our learning around governance, we agreed principles and we agreed a framework. What we didn't kind of agree, and I now know better, is that part of the project needs to be sort of thinking through what are the control checks you're going to put in along the way, whether that is AI-driven control checks or whether there's manual control checks you put in. We had some outcomes that probably weren't right, that we didn't pick up early enough. Didn't call because they were small processing, wasn't the end of the world, but I think it was just a good learning to say, as you build the control checks as you would any other process into the AI model or into the process around the AI. And then I touched on it earlier. I feel that we spend a lot of time to get our data correct and accurate and cleansed. But if I was to do it now, the way AI has evolved, I think I can use the AI tool to do a lot more of that for me. I don't need the team to spend months doing that. You can get AI models that are specifically trained now just to look at data cleanse exercises. So I wouldn't get too hung up that the data's not 100% perfect today. I'd be going, well, I can go and find an AI agent to help me do that.
That's awesome. Andre, we have a question from the group here around principles around governance. Did you create any policies around that to guide principles for AI?
I think the first time we did it, we didn't. We just had, I think it was about 15, 20 principles, something like that. But as we went along and as we learned, we absolutely did. Today, I think, as a community, we're much more across what needs to be in governance frameworks. If you go to AICD, or you could go to CPA or CA, generally they got guides now around what should be in a policy framework. I didn't start with that. I learned as I went along. But if I was new in an organization today and they didn't have one, I'd certainly turn to an AICD type framework. And the great thing is AI's come about now where you can just use AI itself to help you draft that framework, right? So I wouldn't write it from scratch myself. I would use the AI to draft it for me and then validate it and interrogate it as a governance committee before adopting it. But yeah, great. All right. All right. So how did I do it? This is I've got a 30-day action plan that I built and a 60-day. Well, it's a 60-day action plan, breaking into 30 days and 60 days. Don't worry about making notes, because I am going to give you a couple of handouts at the end of this session, and you'll get them free. One of them is a bit more of a detailed breakdown of this 30, 60-day thing, because I think it will help you. Is this 100% what you need? Well, you made that assessment. It's what worked for me. And I've kind of evolved this probably over the last 5 years as we've done things, and I've learned what we've done and what works and where we need to focus, and that sort of forms the framework of this for you. So my 30-day action plan starts with the 30 days. The first 30 days, it's about getting your organization aware of AI, getting your AI pilot program selected, and starting to get some momentum to make it happen. That's what you want to achieve in the first 30 days. So how do we do that? The first one I talk about is week 1. Let's start some research. You need to research what are the business challenges you've got currently. So what is a challenge where AI could potentially help you? You then need to research what AI exists around that business challenge, and find out what solutions are there. You also need to start educating the team in finance around AI. Get your team familiar with AI so they're not scared of it. Get them across what it can and can't do, what are the pitfalls, what are the pros, and then the last thing is I'd start that governance discussion day 1. And I'd start with the CEO board and say, look, we need to start doing AI. I'm going to do it in finance because it makes sense for me to start here, for us to learn how we're going to do it. And then I can take those learnings and take it into the wider organization. Week 2 is, okay, we've identified the quick win that we're going to go and pursue. We've identified that business problem. We think we've found a couple of 3-4 AI vendors that can help potentially solve that business challenge, and we've engaged the board around the concept of what is that business challenge we want to address, and how we're going to do it using a pilot program. The aim of that is we're taking the board and the execs on the journey as much as we're taking the team on the journey. Week 3 is really where we start getting some momentum. I start with getting a team together, a bit of a tiger team. I love sort of small skunk teams, tiger teams, whatever you want to call them. I love it. Always sort of put money in my budgets aside that no one knows about, but I use to fund those type of things. All right, because that's where real innovation happens. And anyone that when you play around with innovation, you know that you're going to get it wrong sometimes, you're going to get it right sometimes, but you've got to try it. So so funding the tiger team, getting that up and running, selecting who we want on that team. You're going to need your business owner, you're going to need your process owner and person that does it. You're going to need someone from IT, and you're potentially going to need an external consultant to help you. And of course, you're going to need your vendor. So we're also selecting the vendor in that week. We've had them come in, present their solution to us, present the demo to us, present their costings. We're doing this small. This is a quick turnaround. Don't think it's a big RFP process. You're not going to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's going to be quick and easy. All right. So you don't need to be sitting there thinking I need a formal RFP, RFQ process. You can do this relatively quickly. It's a pilot program. And then we're going to build a quick high-level business case because, I think any good CFO puts discipline around what they're doing. And we want to talk to the board. We want to keep the team accountable for, hey, let's not spend $1 million on something where we've only put 50,000 aside for it. All right? Before we move into, okay, we now need to start thinking about where the data is that the AI agent needs, where we're going to get it. What is the current status of that data? How accurate is it? What's the source of it? how do we quarantine what data we're going to put into the AI model. That raises obvious questions around data security. We need to ensure that we're preserving the data in the core model wherever we take it from, that it's secure and it's transferred to the AI model, and that it's secure in the AI model. And this is where your IT person needs to be there to help you. But we're going to build a data security plan. At this stage, I'm saying it's time for you to start thinking about a governance committee. And this is one of the lessons I learned along the way. I didn't do this in the first one. Now we're going to start saying, well, hang on, we know we're going to need a governance framework. We know we're going to need governance policies around AI and all that jazz. Just like we've got an audit and risk management committee, maybe we need an AI governance committee. It could be done through the audit and risk management committee if you want to do it there, but depending on your organization. But the idea is you need to have a formal committee that's going to help debate the policies, sign off the policies, sign off the control frameworks, all of those things that you normally do in your risk management piece to ensure that an organization is doing the right thing. And then from an IT point of view, you're also going to start setting up your test environments, setting up your API links that you need to do to move the data from one spot to another. So that's the first 30 days. Day 30 to day 60 is, all right, let's start getting this pilot up and running. It's a pilot. We're not doing something massive, so it can be quick. The first sort of 2 weeks really is the vendor's going to get the the AI agent up and running. You're going to be feeding the initial data that you've done in week 4 into it. You're going to be teaching the AI agent how to interpret that data and give you an outcome that you want. You're going to be, the target team working for you should be ensuring that the data that goes in, they've validated that you're not putting in unvalidated data. As I said, I had a process where no data could go in unless it was signed off by the appropriate person. So you got to be very careful that you're not putting something into the AI agent that shouldn't be there. You're going to be looking at the results that comes out and teaching that model how to deal with it. You're going to be asking the AI agent during this stage, not just how to handle the standard process, but start to ask it how to handle exceptions. Put incomplete data in so that it knows what to do if it receives incomplete data. All right? Put data where maybe there's an error in it so you can identify the error. Right? You've got to teach it the exception as much as the standard way of doing things. And then the last piece is you're going to start getting your team members that own the process day to day. You're going to start getting them engaged. If you do, like me, an AP AI model as your first one, I pulled one of my AP team members aside, and we just taught that person initially. So it was sort of like a quarantined. I didn't disrupt the whole team. I just got one AP officer, and we taught the AI agent everything around that AP officer's vendors. Week 7, we now start looking at a couple of things and start measuring. We want to measure the accuracy rate of the AI agent, just like you would measure the accuracy rate of an employee. You measure the accuracy rate of your agent. All right. We're starting to get to a point where we should be thinking about, well, what does the AI agent do to our process? Do we need to update our process or document it? We want to start putting in and measuring KPIs on the productivity of the AI agent. Hopefully, we've done the measurement, the baseline before the AI pilot, so we can start to get some real data to give us what the ROI would look like if we were to expand it. And then through the governance framework that we set up, now we start building some of those policies, the governance charter, etc. Using an appropriate framework like the AICD framework. By week 8, we should have the AI model pretty refined, both for doing the day-to-day, but also how to handle exceptions. We should have our data security up and running, but what we want to do in week 8 is another assessment. We want to do a risk assessment, see whether we missed anything. All right. We're also going to start rolling it out to the wider team. So we're going to build our training. and we're going to start putting in place the control checks that I talked about earlier as something that we don't want to miss. So whether that is using automated control checks that the AI agent does themselves, or whether there's manual control checks that your staff do around the AI, we want to start putting them in place. Where we should be at the end of week 8 is your pilot should be ready for wider deployment. And you should be up and running with your first AI win. All right. So that's how I've done AI, and give you a couple of examples. Like I said, you're going to get some handouts around that to help you, and feel free to use them, pull them apart, add your own elements to that. What I thought I'd like to do now is start to open your mind a little bit around what exists in AI. So today, if we look at the 6 major areas of finance, whether that's accounts, the accounting side, the FP&A, the audit and risk management, our procurement side, and our treasury and tax management, there is the great thing is there is AI tools available for each of these areas. That those tools could be embedded in your ERP system, and I've shown below, SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, Dynamics, Sage all have AI elements embedded. It could be using a large language model, particularly some of your more generic chatbot type things. That could work, like Copilot and Gemini or Claude. Or you might be going down the path of, I'm going to go find a specific small language model that does a specific element of it, like Stamply is a great accounts payable, accounts receivable AI agent. You might use Audit Board to do your accounting anomaly checking. So they exist today, and I wanted to share this because in finance, there is lots of room for AI to be used. You've just got to decide what is the biggest problem area that you've got where you can do a pilot and use a piece of AI to help you with it. If I kind of look forward, I talk about starting small, winning big. And what the reason I do that is my learnings over time is that the large language models are there for more generic capabilities. But I believe where we're going to go is that small language models that are specific to a particular function is what we're going to build. And so we're going to have a number of different AI agents, might be different vendors, doing specific tasks. And I kind of, when I was rationalizing it, thinking it's a bit like an organizational chart. You've got different roles in an org chart in finance, different people do different things. Same with your IA agents. You can have different IA agents doing different things. So you start small and you do bespoke solutions. So you might do an AP AI agent or an AR IA agent, right? Over time, once you've got a few of those agents up and running, we can start getting a little bit better value by connecting them. So for instance, we might take the AP agent and the AR agent, and we might put a controller agent in as well, and then connect the three. And what that controller agent then can do is it can send queries on its own to the AP agent or the AR agent to get information that it may want to use then to make decisions as a controller. So a good example could be, what is my working capital requirement for the week? Well, I know I've got to do an AP run, and I know I should get some money in from my receivables. It should be able to send a query off to both to come back, and then the controller agent should tell you what is the net amount I'm going to need in working capital this week. As a very simple basic, you can extend that to be, how do I do longer term forecasting? Are my suppliers my customers? Am I getting the best rate, etc. Where we end up is, I think if you start this over a period of time, you're going to end up with an organizational structure where there's an agent for each role that kind of mimics your organizational structure, your finance team structure, where there's an agent supporting a role, but just as your team works together, your AI suite work together and are connected. And the benefit of agentic AI can really be deployed where not only can it automate things, but it can think for you and start doing things on the run. So
That's
that's
awesome. Thank you for clearing that up, Andre. A
yep,
lot of the feedback that I have had when having
yep,
conversations is it isn't not necessarily where just to start, is that there's an assumption that AI, like let's use ChatGPT, it's the first one out of the ranks, can fix everything, when actually it's breaking it down like per letter of the alphabet rather than trying to tackle everything all at one part. Those bite-sized parts and then connecting them to talk to each other makes it digestible, palatable, and a lot easier to achieve rather than tackling everything all in one go.
absolutely, and that's the way I would approach it. You know, my kind of view of it is that and learnings, I guess, over time is those large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, they do a good role and they're certainly worth using. But when you get into specific activities that you want to do on a specific thing, you may, you know, from a cost point of view and from a technology point of view, you're better off finding a small language model that does that specific thing. And then over time, you can then start teaching the different AI agents to talk to each other, to share the information that it does, just as a team does, right?
Yeah,
So I
awesome.
kind of look at it like a suite of, you know, as you would build a team in a scaling organization, you might have a role that does something today, you're going to get a role in that does that, right? You bring another role in to do something else. In time, those people are going to talk to each other and they're going to learn and they're going to grow together. Your AI agent's no different.
And this supports with controls, governance, and ethical AI that not one bot can do everything. It stays in its lane essentially and just does that very well until you connect it to the next ethical AI engine.
Yeah, I believe so,
Yeah.
particularly because you're only feeding the data that that AI agent needs into it. So you're not feeding a whole heap of data into the AP agent, which it doesn't need. It only needs AP relevant data, right? So again, part of your data security strategy is you're starting to filter what data goes where, and you're quite right, Anthony. No one is you know, no one agent is getting everything, and if there's a breach, it's a problem. Great. All right. Conscious of time. So my last thing I wanted to talk very quickly about was frameworks for you. Again, one of the handouts I got for you is a little bit more detail around this with some examples on how to use it. I am going to preface this is very much yeah, belongs to the world of AI. I actually asked AI what are the best prompts, and it's given me this framework. So, um, uh, uh, but I share that because I thought it was interesting what you can get out of AI. I got this out of Claude if you're interested. Um, so the key is that just like an employee, when you're asking an employee how to do something, sometimes you can't just ask one simple question. You've got to give a bit more detailed instructions, or you've got to ask a number of different questions so that you can get the context right to get the right answer. So it's not a simple like a Google search where you just put the question in and you're going to get the right answer. You, if you do, you're lucky, right? But the best way to use AI is to think of it as an employee. You've got to give it context. You need to give it um, details where you want something specifically, right? And what these frameworks do is they will allow you, depending on what you're asking, to give the AI agent the right question when you ask it. And the benefit of that is really to avoid this. And there's a great example of what happens when you use different instructions to the AI agent. You know, you've got the original picture there and you want to turn it into a black and white picture. Now you can give ChatGPT a simple thing, make this picture black and white, and you'll get something that's black and white. It's just a grayscale version of it. But if you actually wanted to be artistic and wanted to create something a little bit more enriched around what you get back, if you give it an instruction which talks about the contrast rate, you want to get a close up, or what size lens and the definition you want, you're going to get a very different outcome. And that's why your use of the chat prompts is so important to get the outcome you want, and ask it different ways.
Which comes down to
So
language, doesn't it, Andre?
it does. And so
Yeah.
we're going to share. I got another 3 takeaways for you today. One of them is, just different AI chat frameworks, prompt frameworks for you to use with examples how to use each one. So that's probably it for me. To wrap up, couple of key things for you to take away. I think as a finance person, you should be the influential owner of AI in your organization. Start small, find a small thing. Don't look at the large language models. Look at a specific solution for a specific task. Fund your pilot program, and just remember, AI is just like any other transformational piece of work you're doing. You've got to focus on 3 things: your people, your process, and your systems, right? If you do that, you get AI going in your organization and learn along the way. And because you're starting small, if you get it wrong, it's not the end of the world. It's about, that's what pilots are for, right? To learn as you go. But as you start building that capability up, you will start doing more and more, and then you can start actually winning big, because you're going to start building an organization that is AI enabled. So that's my wrap up. I hope you found it useful. I promised you a couple of things. I actually got 3 things I'm going to share with you that you'll get after the session in the next 24 hours. I'll give you the AI prompt framework that I talked about, so you can have a look at that. I'll give you the 30-60 implementation plan that I've built over time. And also, I thought what I find quite useful for first-time people is the language of AI. It's got its own language. I thought I'd give you a cheat sheet to help you with that. Encourage you, go out, get the pilot going, get going, learn as you go. I wish you the best of luck with it. If you want to connect with me, please feel free to do so. I love having chats to different people about different things and learning from each other. I'm sure you've got things to share with me that I can take away. And I'm more than happy to catch up. I am going to organise another event in September. Stay tuned. It'll be a face-to-face networking event. The idea is to go a bit deeper in some of these things so that we can kind of give you a little bit more of a in-depth look at AI in finance.
A question, Andre, we have a couple of questions from the group. If you can be so kind as to stay on there. I'll just read through them. So what are the typical problems in your experience about preventing AI adaptation with effective management strategies, also to prevent companies and employees falling into an endless pursuit of productivity, and making it more difficult to truly realize the value in AI? What's your thoughts around that?
Well, like a lot of things, I think you've got to start with education, and that's why I said in day one it's education.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, the media has a large say in how the noise of AI has been generated, and media are sensationalists. They look for usually stories that are poor outcomes for society rather than one of the good things. So I think you've got to create a message internally where people go, yeah, that can happen and it can be an outcome, but that's not where the main value of AI lands. I look at the media and go, what's happening with companies like Amazon and Microsoft, and I go, that is an outlier of how AI should be used. So I personally think it's an education piece, and that's why the change management side, that culture readiness for AI, in my view, is probably the single most important thing to get right.
Awesome. We have a question from Arun. How do you ensure you are keeping your customer data proprietary with leveraging these AI tools?
Great. Now, I'm not a techie, so I'll stick my hand up. I'm not a techie, but where you got to think about is, well, firstly, like anything, what data am I going to put into the AI? That's why I like the idea of small, separate tools for separate things, because you're limiting your exposure. Secondly, you got to talk to your IT team about, well, how are we going to protect that data? How are we going to protect it while it's in transit, right? How are we going to protect it when it's being stored? Are we going to encrypt it? How's it going to sit inside the rest of our secure environment? So you got to be wedded with your IT person at the hip and have those conversations. The third thing you got to do is you got to teach your AI agent, and this is where the governance framework is, what's acceptable and not acceptable, right? You can teach your AI agent that it's not acceptable to email the data out, for instance, or to allow non-authorized entry. But you've got to sit there and think that through as a person and match those policies you want to the risk appetite, I guess, that you have as an organization to get it right. But absolutely, you need your CIO with you on this as part of the journey, and they got to take care of that technical side of security of your AI agent.
Great stuff. I have a great question from Brett in the group. So with the deployment of these AI agents, what did you do around psychological safety for the employees who would likely feel displaced with the implementation of these AI agents, which again comes down to cultural part, but how did you go around that?
Yeah, really interesting because it does have a lot to do with culture. And I was lucky I was doing this in a smaller scale up organization where I could have one-on-one conversations and give reassurance. The way I would think about it, though, is this is where, if you think about the prosecute change management model, it's, the very first thing in that model is talks about awareness. And I talked a little bit about the education and why that's important. I think you got to give people awareness of what it really is and where the benefit is. And the benefit of AI, in my view, is not about saving $80,000-$100,000 role. The benefit to me is, how do I make that $80,000 person equivalent to someone that's a $300,000-$400,000 person in an organization in terms of their capacity, in terms of their output, etc. Right? So I think you've got to be transparent with it in terms of, can it do that? Sure. I'm a big believer in having transparent conversations, but I also think you got to talk about, but there's all these upsides, and that's what we want to focus on. And the best way I know to get a team engaged when there's uncertainty is to empower them to help frame the outcome. So put it back onto them and say, I don't want to replace you. Let's jump into AI. Show me how you can use AI to become 300-400 times more productive than you are. And that's kind of how I would approach it.
It's like any change management model, taking people on a journey, providing clarity, providing direction. There's just a lot of noise and a lot of confusion out there. That's what I'm hearing. So hopefully this gives the frameworks, the models, the education, the comfort to educate businesses in a I don't know, more insightful way.
Indeed.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have any more questions for Andre? Doesn't look like there's anything coming through.
Okay. All right.
Wonderful. Everybody, thank you so much for your interest and taking part of this webinar. Andre, thank you very much for sharing everything. It's invaluable. I hope that people found value in your learnings and your successes along the way. For me, I hope that you found this helpful. Value created outside of recruitment. I would like to be able to continue to do this. So I would love feedback. Feedback is a gift. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, what topics you'd like covering off. Maybe if Andre isn't too busy, he could help out again with some on AI 2.0. But I look forward to hearing from you. But for now, have a good rest of the day, and thank you so much for your time.